Today at 6, the Home Secretary under pressure. Suella Braverman is forced to defend herself to MPs on two fronts.
We need your help.
Children cry for help at the overcrowded migrant centre in Kent. The Home Secretary denies she blocked extra accommodation for migrants.
How big does the crisis need to get, Home Secretary?
And she is accused of potential breaches of security after sending 6 official government emails from her private account.
I've been clear that I made an error of judgment. I apologised for that error. I took responsibility for it and I resigned.
In the last hour, the Home Secretary has been mounting a spirited defence on both counts to MPs in the House of Commons. Also on the programme, a special report from the front line of the fighting in Ukraine and the devastation it leaves behind.
Look at it. Desolation. This is what months of attritional warfare does to a town.
Could there be a shortage of turkeys this Christmas as new restrictions come in to fight the UK's largest ever bird flu outbreak? And how our unseasonably warm autumn may look beautiful, but is jeopardising ecosystems, confusing plants and animals.
On BBC London, a delivery driver is killed after a car chase and shooting in Brixton. And the people living at the redeveloped Walthamstow Stadium are being forced to leave. We'll explain why.
We start tonight with a special report from Ukraine, as Russia has again targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure in a wave of missile strikes across the country, including the capital Kyiv, where the mayor says 4 out of 5 people have been without running water. Ukraine says Russia fired at least 50 missiles, but was able to shoot most of them down. Our international editor Jeremy Byrne has spent the last week travelling through Ukraine, from the frontline battlefields of the Donbass in the east to the village of Myro Lyubivka in the Kherson region, where some of Russia's best troops are concentrated to try to stop a Ukrainian offensive. And I should warn you, his report contains some deeply distressing details.
For Ukrainians, this is a fight for national survival. The hardest test any nation can face. It upends every life. It has ended the lives of thousands. This is Bakhmut under heavy shelling. At the moment, the center of the artillery war in Donbass.
Left is good.
More than 70,000 people used to live here. Almost all of them have left. When I was last in Bakhmut in the summer, there was shelling, but it was still more or less functional. Some buses running, a few shops open. But now, look at it. Desolation. This is what months of attritional warfare does to a town. Bakhmut's war hospital is a short ride from the mud and blood of the front line. The invasion, the casualties, the terrible cost of President Putin's attempt to subdue a people he says are the same as Russians, all of it has sharpened Ukrainians' sense of nationhood. This soldier had a lucky escape from a sniper. The bullet hit his hand. This is going to hurt, the doctor warns. The pain so far has deepened the Ukrainian will to fight. But in wars, resilience has its limits. Sustaining it needs victories, not just sacrifice. At the deadliest times, the medics work for 2 days straight, with almost no rest.
Terrible to see the pain of our soldiers, to see what kind of traumas they get in this war. The most terrible thing is to see the suffering of our country. This is the most terrible. The rest is just our job. Here I see how our boys fight, the wounds they receive ruin their lives. It depresses me more than anything else.
Just behind the front line near Bakhmut, this is a Ukrainian artillery unit's daily routine. First, reloading their missile launcher, a 50-year-old Soviet Grad B-21 that is a tried and trusted killing machine. Ukraine's autumn mud has slowed down generations of armies. Mobile warfare will be easier when it freezes over. The Russians saw them coming.
Incoming.
Memories of peace are receding, pushed away by the debilitating routines of war.
I was woken up at 4:20 a.m. February 24th. Since then, I am fighting. I don't feel this counteroffensive is somehow special. It's the same as in the beginning. Of course, everyone is scared, but we overcome our fear and go fight. There was shelling. Nothing dramatic. We escaped the shelling. Our old lady helped us. We escaped. I don't feel the difference.
At the other end of the front line, a long day's drive southwest from Donbass, is the district of Kherson. It includes the village of Mirolubivka, recaptured by Ukraine after days of hard fighting in September. We went there because residents said the Russians had terrorized them in 6 months of occupation, and because of what happened when a soldier came to this house at 11:30 on the night of the 13th of July. He dropped this bullet during the next 6 terrible hours, say these women. Now with her daughter in a safe place. That night, Ludmila Mimrikova, a 75-year-old great-grandmother, was alone, until she says the man forced his way in and raped her.
When I opened the door, he immediately punched me in the face, knocked out 2 of my teeth, and broke my nose. I was covered with blood. He started beating me in the chest with his rifle butt. He was hitting my body and my head. I didn't understand what had I done wrong. He pulled my hair, threw me onto the sofa, and began to strangle me, so much that I couldn't swallow water for 2 weeks. Then he began to undress me, and after he raped me, he cut my stomach. Until now I have scars on my stomach. The deep ones still haven't healed. Putin and the Russians will never be forgiven until the end of their world for what they did to the Ukrainians. There will be no forgiveness.
As the seasons change, the war is at a critical point. Ukrainians need a victory this winter in Kherson. Russia cannot afford another defeat. That is a formula for a battle that shapes the course of the war. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News in Ukraine.
The Home Secretary is under intense pressure on 2 fronts tonight. Firstly, on the potential security risk of her decision to send several official government emails from her private account. She's just made a statement to MPs about it, and we'll come to that story in a moment. Suella Braverman is also under attack regarding gross overcrowding at a migrant centre in Kent. The local Conservative MP has blamed the Home Office for allowing the crisis to develop. In the past hour, the Home Secretary has denied claims that she failed to authorise extra hotel accommodation for migrants. The number of migrants arriving in the UK across the Channel is increasing. As you can see, in 2018, there were about 2,000 people arriving in small boats. Compare that to this year, almost 40,000. The Migrant Processing Centre on a disused airfield near Ramsgate is designed to process up to 1,000 migrants who are only meant to spend a few hours there. There are currently thought to be about 4,000 migrants there, with some, including mothers with children, being there as long as 5 weeks. Our home editor, Mark Easton, has spent the day there. He joins me now. Mark.
Fiona, basically you've got an asylum system that is completely gridlocked. 127,000 people awaiting an initial decision, which means there's very little accommodation for all the new asylum seekers as they arrive. So the Home Office has been forced to requisition hotels. They're currently spending £7 million a day on putting hotels in migrants. And actually they're struggling to find any new hotels now, all of which adds up to a deepening crisis for the Home Secretary.
Freedom, freedom, they chant. The voices of children recorded by activists this weekend among thousands housed at what's supposed to be a short-term migrant processing centre at Manston in Kent. They should be here for a few hours, a day or two at most, but some families have been detained for more than a month in conditions described by inspectors as wretched. There's currently an outbreak of scabies. There have been cases of diphtheria and MRSA. Most are now living in tents and sleeping on camping mats on the floor. So what's gone wrong? And should the crisis at Manston have been prevented?
Home Office officials warned ministers last year that 60,000 migrants could cross the Channel in small boats this year, and the busiest months were likely to be October and November. At around the same time, the Inspector of Prisons told the government they needed to have plans for a surge in migrant numbers at places just like Manston.
Ministers were told that they needed to put contingency plans in place, and I think that is negligent. And I think the government needs to rapidly change course and ensure that it treats people with decency, humanity and compassion.
Yesterday saw almost 1,000 migrants arrive. Today, none. The tide's not conducive despite calm weather. But more will be brought ashore beneath the White Cliffs, and many people locally are exasperated.
Welcome again to Shakespeare Beach.
8 days ago, 2 migrant boats pulled up onto a beach near Dover Harbour, the occupants disappearing into nearby woodland. A short time later, a desperate Albanian boy, just 16 years old, ended up in Sue Doyle's living room until police eventually arrived. She's been left terrified.
They're basically saying, oh, we've got to keep all the windows and doors shut, so next summer we've got to live in a prison. We've got to keep all our windows and doors locked, which I don't think we should have to. You should be able to open your window and have some fresh air blowing. And we've been told, oh, keep them shut.
Yesterday, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, visited Manston and has been desperately trying to find alternative accommodation for those stuck there. But when a coach left this afternoon, it was largely empty. The Humber View Hotel in North Ferriby in East Yorkshire was on the Home Office's list to take asylum seekers, but local people have secured an interim High Court injunction claiming the village is unsuitable.
I foresaw the concerns at Manston in September and deployed additional resource and personnel to deliver a rapid increase in emergency accommodation. To be clear, like the majority of the British people, I am very concerned about hotels, but I have never blocked their usage.
The government hopes to deter asylum seekers by prosecuting arrivals and threatening to send some to Rwanda. But the courts may yet have a say on such measures, and ministers must know there can be no quick fix to the UK's deepening asylum crisis. Mark Easton, BBC News, Dover.
Well, as well as facing pressure on overcrowding at Manston, as you saw there, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, was also questioned in the House of Commons this afternoon about her breach of the ministerial code, which led to her resignation before she was reappointed by Rishi Sunak last week. Here's our political editor, Chris Mason.
A collection of marquees in East Kent, the latest challenge for a Home Secretary under intense scrutiny. Manston is an overcrowded processing centre for migrants.
Are you the right person to get this crisis under control, Home Secretary?
And Suella Braverman is facing questions about what she has done and will do about it, and broader criticisms too about her judgment. In the last half hour, she's faced questions in the Commons.
There are very serious allegations now being reported that the Home Secretary was warned by officials and other ministers she was acting outside the law by failing to provide alternative accommodation. On no occasion did I block hotels or veto advice to procure extra and emergency accommodation. Actually, the data and the facts are that on my watch, since the 6th of September, over 30 new hotels were agreed.
This is a heated debate, and with a striking choice of language from the Home Secretary.
The British people deserve to know which party is serious about stopping the invasion on our southern coast and which party is not.
And there was this admission after 12 years of the Conservatives in power.
We need to be straight with the public. The system is broken. Illegal migration is out of control.
Suella Braverman has also been trying to clear up today what she did and didn't do less than a fortnight ago when she found herself resigning from the very job she's now back doing again. She stood down because she twice broke the ministerial code, sharing government information with those not entitled to see it and using her personal email account to do so. In a letter to MPs, she said on the day she ended up out of a job, she'd been on a car journey to the Home Office. I only had my personal phone and email to hand. She used that phone and account to send a government document to a backbench MP and his secretary, but sent it to someone else in Parliament by accident. After that, she said, she went straight into back-to-back meetings with officials, but concluded within hours that I would inform my officials as soon as practicable. She also admitted that in her 6 weeks in the job, I had sent official documents from my government email to my personal email address on 6 occasions. The Prime Minister insists he has full confidence in his Home Secretary, who confronts ongoing questions about her own conduct while dealing with an issue, those arriving on small boats, loaded with moral, political and practical problems. And all of this boils down to a single crucial word: judgment. Her judgment and that of the Prime Minister in choosing to reappoint her. Now, there will be those who welcome a robust approach to the whole issue of migrant crossings and will say that anything that helps reduce those numbers is perhaps worth trying. But there is a bigger question now being asked within the Conservative Party and beyond, and it is this: does the Home Secretary have a sufficient grip and competence on her own job to continue? And those questions are still being asked tonight.
Chris at Westminster, thank you. The COVID public inquiry is asked to see Boris Johnson's WhatsApp messages from his time as Prime Minister as part of its probe into decision-making. Hugo Keith Casey, who's leading the inquiry, said the messages had been requested alongside thousands of other documents. This part of the investigation is focused on how decisions to impose lockdowns and restrictions were taken. 2 men have died after a car chase that ended with a Deliveroo takeaway driver being knocked off his moped and another man fatally shot. The victims, both aged in their 20s, were killed in Brixton yesterday evening. No arrests have been made so far. A coroner has criticised Exeter University for failing to provide adequate support to a student who took his own life last year, saying there is a catalogue of missed opportunities. 21-year-old Harry Armstrong Evans died at his family home after struggling with his mental health. Both he and his family had contacted the university seeking support. Jenny Kumar reports.
Harry's family say he was kind, clever and shy. He was on course to get a good grade for his physics degree, but in January last year he got poor exam results. He took his own life 6 months later in his family home in Cornwall.
Our worlds fell apart. They'll never be the same again. We still haven't recovered. I don't think we will recover.
It's the sort of thing that you can't believe it's actually happened.
The inquest heard that Harry had emailed the university a month before his death. He told them about his isolation during lockdown, his declining mental health and worries about his exams. His mother had also contacted them with concerns about his welfare. The coroner said there was a catalogue of missed opportunities and that the university failed to respond effectively to the family's calls for help. He said he was concerned about a risk of future deaths and that he would be writing to the university asking them to review staff training, suicide prevention and welfare services. The student's family are calling for Harry's Law, a number of legal changes, including the requirement for universities to publish their annual suicide rates. They hope this will act as an incentive for universities to offer more support and help sooner.
No parent should outlive their child. These simple and inexpensive measures would, we have no doubt, ensure that fewer parents are made to suffer the misery that we will live with forever.
In a statement, the university said, "We are deeply saddened by Harry's death and the family's loss. We will consider the coroner's conclusions and make sure we learn lessons." The family say they'll continue campaigning for changes to help stop more students taking their own life. Jenny Kumar, BBC News.
If you've been affected by any of the issues raised in Jenny's report, there's lots of information, including links to charities and organisations offering support, on the BBC's Action Line website. That's bbc.co.uk/actionline. The time is 6:20, our top story this evening. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has defended her actions regarding an overcrowded migrant processing centre in Kent. And still to come, how around 1 million households with prepayment meters have not yet taken up government vouchers to cut £400 off their energy bills.
Also coming up, why university students are launching legal action over the disruption during the COVID pandemic. And the West London pensioners who decided to tidy up the streets of Ealing collect thousands of bags of litter.
All poultry in England must be kept indoors under new restrictions to fight the country's largest ever bird flu outbreak. As the government announced the order, free-range turkey farmers warned there could be shortages and price rises this Christmas. So, what is bird flu? It's a potentially fatal infection that spreads among wild and domestic birds through direct bird-to-bird contact. Around 5.5 million birds have died or been culled since last October. The virus can very occasionally spread to humans, but only through touching an infected bird or droppings. The risk to the general public is extremely low, but people are advised to thoroughly cook chicken and eggs. Our environment correspondent Jonah Fisher reports.
If you're already dreaming of Christmas dinner, listen up.
It's devastating. No, it really is.
Paul Kelly is a turkey farmer from Essex.
Morning, boys!
In good times, he's a proud promoter of his free-range flock.
It's just joyous to me to come down here in the mornings.
Now, under the new housing order, farmers will have to choose whether to bring their turkeys inside or slaughter them early.
You know, I've seen farms that have gone down with it. I've got close friends that have lost their businesses this Christmas, doing their Christmas poultry. It gets there, and, you know, once it's in, you know, you'll have the bit of mortality on maybe Thursday afternoon, or by Sunday or Monday, the entire flock will be dead.
Bird flu has meant more than 5 million birds dying or being culled in the last year. A staggering 2.3 million of them were in October alone. One of the reasons why this outbreak is proving so hard to contain is because it's being spread from farm to farm by wild birds. All it takes is for one of them to land in a field of free-range turkey and infect them, and then the whole flock has to be destroyed. With so many wild birds carrying the disease, many farmers are now calling for a change in strategy that accepts that bird flu is here to stay. Is it time for us to move away from culling birds to vaccinating birds?
Well, there's a huge amount of work and now global discussion going on what effective vaccination and effective surveillance will look like. Certainly this time last year that conversation wasn't happening. Now it is, which is a really good step.
So what does it mean for those making plans for Christmas dinner?
Overall, we've lost quite a number of free-range birds from the Christmas market, so there will be a slight shortage of supply.
Some turkeys will be more expensive.
Free-range turkeys may be more expensive, but it really depends on where you are in the country and the producer that you're buying from.
As ever, if you don't want to be disappointed, get your order in early. Jonah Fisher, BBC News.
Supporters of Brazil's president-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva have been celebrating his narrow election victory over Jair Bolsonaro. The left-wing leader first won the presidency 20 years ago, but couldn't run in the last election because he was in jail for corruption charges, which were then annulled. President Biden and the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, both said they look forward to working with him, in particular on protecting the Amazon. Police in India have detained 9 people in connection with the collapse of a bridge in Gujarat, which resulted in the deaths of at least 140 people. They said those arrested included employees of a private company involved in the maintenance and management of the bridge. In South Korea, a memorial to the victims of Saturday's Halloween crush has opened in the capital, Seoul. The country's president laid a single white chrysanthemum, a symbol of grief in South Korea, at the memorial altar. 154 people are reported to have died in the crush in a narrow alley in the popular Itaewon district of Seoul. Around 1 million households with prepayment meters have not yet redeemed vouchers to help with energy bills, according to figures from PayPoint and the Post Office. The vouchers, issued from October the 1st under the government's energy bill support scheme in England, Scotland and Wales, can be exchanged for £66 worth of credit on the meter each month, giving a total of £400 off bills this winter. The discount is automatic for customers using direct debit, monthly bills or smart prepayment apps. But there are worries that those on old-fashioned meters could be missing out. Our cost of living correspondent Coletta Smith has the details.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, not so bad, thanks. Could I top up £50 on my gas card, please?
Yeah, sure. Shirley's popped in to top up the meter, but didn't know she was due extra cash from the government.
Thank you. Well, I didn't know anything about it until just now, so yeah, it's I don't know when I was supposed to be entitled to it from or when I'm supposed to be entitled to it. An extra £66 a month would be absolutely wonderful, coming up to winter.
Everyone in Britain on a prepayment meter should have had their first monthly instalment by today. But like lots of PayPoint shops, Muntersey has not dished out as much as he was expecting.
They'll bring their letter with a proof of ID. We'll check the details, and they'll either bring a key like this or a card like this, and then literally we'll just top that up onto their system. We feel really happy that we've managed to help someone with that.
It's a relief then for a lot of households to have something there on the account.
Definitely, I would urge everyone to just to double check, because it's free money.
While some people may have decided not to cash their vouchers until the weather turns colder and they need the money more, the concern is that others may miss out, especially if their details aren't up to date and the vouchers simply don't arrive. Caroline's worried that even those who do cash their vouchers won't necessarily see the whole benefit if they already owe their energy company money.
It will make some difference because obviously anything helps, but the problem is that many of them with prepayment meters are already in a debt situation, and they're concerned that some of the proportion of that, quite a high proportion, will be used to cover those debts.
The vouchers expire after 90 days and the government are encouraging people to use them as soon as possible. But with millions of pounds as yet unclaimed, many of those missing out are those who'll be most vulnerable this winter. Coletta Smith, BBC News in Todmorden.
Our current warm autumn temperatures may be lovely for most of us. I mean, just look at this. But they are confusing nature and jeopardising fragile ecosystems, according to wildlife experts, as temperatures remain well above average for this time of year. Britain's rare chalk grasslands and wildlife such as hedgehogs and dormice are among those threatened by the warmth, with summer plants continuing to flower repeatedly into the autumn. Duncan Kennedy reports from East Sussex.
It may look like autumn is in full flow, but when you see Berberis darwini, or Gunnera tinctoria, or even rhododendrons in full bloom, well then you know something is not quite right.
A lovely beautiful flower out on it on the moment, but we
We wouldn't normally expect to see that until May next year.
Chris Skinner, a horticulturalist for 15 years, says the recent mild weather is confusing the plant world.
Why does it matter that all these flowers and all this change is going on right now?
It matters because it means that the plants are wasting a lot of their valuable energy. The spring flowering plants are flowering at the wrong time of year, so that wastes their potential for next year. And it also means that some of our trees are really confused.
But it's not just plants and trees being thrown off by this topsy-turvy autumnal weather. Wildlife too is also being confused.
Well, this one we would expect to be hibernating sort of this November, December time.
Hedgehogs are just one species being fooled by the climate.
We've got birds that are not nesting because it's either too hot or too cold. We've got hedgehogs that are not hibernating because it's too warm when it's supposed to be nice and cold. And of course, it's having a big impact on our baseline food chain with insects not being there as part of the food source. So it's having a major impact.
When autumn is squashed by summer, wildlife and plants get squeezed too. Fragile ecosystems being caught out by the fickle climate. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News.
Well, this feels like the right time to look at the weather. Matt is here. Matt, it has been so warm. Is it going to continue?
It has. Back to normal, actually, by the end of this month. It'll actually start at the end of this week. It'll feel like November should do. But once again, today has been another incredibly mild day across the country. Another month of above average temperatures in many parts of the UK too. Here in Cambridgeshire, also in the west of London and Somerset, we saw temperatures this afternoon hit 18 Celsius, 64 Fahrenheit. Not quite the warmest Halloween on record. That was nearly 24 degrees, but 18 Celsius is still around 5 degrees above where we should be. And it's warm out there this evening, but there'll be many a Halloween costume, I suspect. Need a good bit of waterproofing out there. Heavy rain across Western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Heavy and thundery showers across central southern England and Wales, pushing their way northwards. That could give some minor flooding. That will continue to work its way northwards through tonight. But on the southern edge of it, we could see some strong winds. Tighter isobars there through the English Channel. 60, maybe 70 mile an hour gusts. Will be quite a wild night there. But it will be another mild night. 9 to around 13 Celsius as we start tomorrow morning. So into Tuesday we go. Start with cloud outbreaks of rain, Scotland, northern eastern England. That will clear through. Sunshine will come out. And then it's going to be a case of ever-changing skies through Wales, the Midlands and southern England. A blustery day here with a mixture of sunshine and showers. Northern Ireland, a better day compared with today. A lot more in the way of drier weather. Southern Scotland, northern England, some of the driest conditions through the afternoon. Temperatures down a little bit on today, but still a few degrees above normal. And then as we go through Tuesday night and into Wednesday, watching this next developing system. This could be quite a significant one as it pushes in through the day on Wednesday and Wednesday night. Bright start for many with some sunshine around, but the wind's picking up, gales developing widely in the west, and with it some heavy rain reaching all but eastern England by the end of the day. Now, those winds could be disruptive. We could see 60, 70 mile an hour gusts out in the west, maybe a little bit more. And those stronger winds then becoming focused towards parts of Scotland as we head through Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Rain in the south to start Thursday, but brightening up and then turning cooler. Fiona.
Matt, thanks very much. And that is the BBC News at 6 on Monday, the 31st of October. You can keep up with all the latest developments, as always, on the BBC website. From the 6 team, it's goodbye. And the news continues here on BBC One. Now it's time to join our colleagues across the nations and regions for news where you are. Bye-bye.